What's going on, everybody? I bet you're looking at the day and you're wondering what we're doing here because we've already released our episode of the week. This is a new segment we're bringing to you. It's going to be called Best Bets. Hopefully, right? We kind of play around with that,
We,
but
we can workshop, yeah.
we can workshop it. But basically, before every pay-per-view, UFC pay-per-view at least, or maybe a big fight, we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna workshop it in the future. But we are going to be doing a short segment, bringing a betting expert on and talking all things betting. Right? We already did the breakdowns and everything for you, so we're talking bets. What are the best bets, best parlays, best props, everything you need to know to make some money for Saturday's pay-per-view. We're going to be joined here shortly by Bob Voss from the MMA for Money show. And I'm really excited for it, man. I love betting. I love winning some money, and we hope we can get you guys some money as well.
Yeah, I'm pumped. Betting, like, it can be fun if you want to bet like hundreds of dollars, fucking go for it. I think that's great. But also, like, Kurt, I think you could speak to this. Even just putting like $5 on a fight makes it like so much more fun. Or if there's an undercard fight you don't care about, if you just have a little bit of money riding on it, it makes it so much more fun. And hopefully we can help you guys out with actually making a little bit of profit with this.
Yeah, it makes the fights a lot funner. And it's not just fights, right? You can bet on literally anything online. Tennis, boxing, football, basketball, anything you name, you can bet on it. But here we're going to be talking about the fights. So here in a couple minutes, we're going to be joined by Bob Voss from the MMA for Money show. So we are now joined by Bob Voss from the MMA for Money show. Bob, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime, man. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump into it. The main event, Deiveson Figueiredo, the champ, taking on Alex Perez. The current odds for this fight sees Deiveson Figueiredo as the minus 280 favorite. The comeback on Alex Perez is plus 220. What do we like there? What don't we like?
Well, I like Deiveson Figueiredo just in general. I don't like the steep odds because Alex Perez has a definite shot. I talked to a few people and would probably reiterate here that Perez is. It's kind of odd saying Perez is the future of the division when Deiveson is the champion now and he's just the recent champion, but he's that new crop of flyweights that's going to be challenging probably multiple times for the title. And I love his chances in the future. I just don't love him here. The odds themselves lean more towards Figueiredo because he has that finishing capability. And then also I think everyone's making the connection of Perez getting finished by Joseph Benavidez. Yes, that was 2 years ago, but getting finished by Joseph Benavidez. And although the first one was controversial, Figueiredo finishing Joe B 2 times in a row. So that's kind of why you have the odds there. But I would not necessarily put stuff on Figueiredo at those odds. Just Perez is game enough to be able to pull something off, but I don't see it happening here personally.
Now, do you think those odds are maybe a little steep? Because at least, guys like me and Kurt are super tuned into this sport, but neither of us were super familiar with Alex Perez until he was basically challenging for the title. Do you think that kind of has something to do with these odds a little bit? Perez not really being a household name by any stretch of the imagination?
I think that has a lot to do with it, especially because at Open, if memory serves, Figueiredo was minus 210. And that seems pretty much more right about where it's at. And then he just got steamed because he has the name recognition and obviously is coming off the finishes. And that anybody will bet a recognizable name, whether they're whatever. And honestly, opening odds can get fluctuated a lot given the early plays, even if they're not very big. So a lot of early money came in on Figueiredo, which pushed him up to close to minus 300. And then it's kind of where it's sat ever since. So not too much more money have come in on him after that. But since you've said it, that Perez is the minus 280. It's finally starting to work back the other way, but yeah, definitely recency biased and name recognition will give big swing towards odds.
So Figueiredo is definitely the proven finisher here. The over/under, it looks like it's set at 1.5. The under is plus 150. Do you like that at all?
I do actually, because this is a big spot, and typically early coming fighters, for their first shot at a belt in their youth, they're much more prone to go across the cage, just overly excitable. I don't know why, and then that can give Figueiredo a solid chance of getting a finish. It's also when Perez will be the freshest to possibly implement a little bit of a wrestling and come after Figueiredo and maybe even getting a sub. So, like, yeah, I really like the under 1.5. I didn't realize that was plus money. That I would if I was going to take a lean in this fight, it would probably be towards that.
Okay, so we like Figueiredo, or no, I'm sorry, we like the under 1.5 at plus 150. I like that as well. Shifting to the co-main event. Currently, Valentina Shevchenko, mybookie.ag, is a minus 15-20 favorite with the comeback on Jennifer Maia at plus 905. Is there any bet, prop, anything that you like on this fight?
The only one I like is Shevchenko inside the distance. It's minus 175. So that's still super, super steep, but the likelihood of her getting a finish here, I think, is higher than that in relation to her odds. Like you said, she's minus 15-20, and the most likelihood that the way this ends for her is by finish, especially because she's such a potent finisher, by both strikes and submission. Not saying that she gets all of her fights that way, but now that she's at 125 and a fighter like Maia that has a lot more straightforward attacks, I think you can see a lot more like stepping off and countering, like a lot like how Shevchenko did against Holly Holm. But just, I don't know, she just carries just that little bit more power. And obviously, in a ground transition, Maia would be prone to bringing it there. I think that she could get into a spot to get a finish. So over the course of 5-minute rounds, that inside the distance is really the only way to play Shevchenko here at that minus 175. But still, like I said, it's still fairly steep.
Yeah, man. If I want to play devil's advocate here, what are the chances that Shevchenko kind of does the Liz Carmouche dance again? Is there any chance at all that we get a boring fight? I know you just said it, and I agree with you that Shevchenko inside the distance feels like the most likely outcome, but am I risking anything that we're going to get kind of a passive fight from Shevchenko here?
Yes, and no. Honestly, Shevchenko, only because Liz Carmouche, that was her chance, and she didn't take it. She didn't move forward, and Shevchenko obviously always does her best in the counter. She can add layers some to it, and when she has you hurt or stings you, then she will go on the offense. But she very much is more of a counter striker, especially in a spot like this. So it's possible if Maia gets overwhelmed by the moment and she kind of fades back towards the fence, and then Shevchenko has to be the one engaging. That is the times that you get those spots. But I don't know. I have to go with past performances of Maia and have to assume that she is going to go for it, even if it's like attempts to try to get it to the ground or just try to make something happen. And that's when Shevchenko shines the most.
Yeah, I'm with that. Jennifer Maia from Shootbox, especially, she's a pretty aggressive fighter.
Yeah, she's going to come forward probably to her detriment, but we shall see. A couple other ones on the main card. Mike Perry weighs in, I believe, 4.5 pounds overweight at 170 and then dabs on the scale in typical Mike Perry fashion. But Mike Perry, as of right now, is a minus 130 favorite. The comeback on Tim Means is plus 100. I kind of like it. What do you think about that one?
For me, this is a major stay away, only because it's kind of a crossroads fight for both Means and Perry in a way, even though Perry is so much younger. Is Means, in terms of his skill, if he was the guy he used to be, it's like this could be his fight. He could definitely like strike at range, keep distance with those front kicks to the stomach that he always used to be known for. He's decent in the clinch, avoid taking body shots, and could have a chance. But he's just not as durable as he once was. And whereas Perry has the power, but even if you focus on it, in the last like day or 2 days, he's basically had a full-blown like mental breakdown on Twitter. That's been quite hilarious to see, even in terms of the weight cut, and just not sure if he wants to do it anymore. So this just screams stay away from me, only because like you're dealing with someone like Mike Perry. What I said on our show, which I think holds very true, is that price for Mike Perry is a steal if Mike Perry fights smart. But then that's hoping Mike Perry fights smart, which isn't necessarily a thing that he has been shown he can do for sustained periods of time. So I would stay away from this one. If you have like a definite lean on this one or you have an angle, by all means go for it. But I'm just personally not seeing it.
He does have Coach Latory Gonzalez in his corner.
I mean, unless she goes into labor during the fight.
No, right?
Knock on wood. We can hope that happens.
That's a viral moment, way bigger than the Buckley finish. Way bigger.
Absolutely. Last one on the main card. I just want to ask you quick about Shogun Hua versus Paul Craig. Shogun Hua is coming in at plus 150. The comeback on Paul Craig minus 180. I know in the first fight that ended in a draw, Shogun was actually the favorite. The odds have flipped here. Do you have any strong lean on this one?
Honestly, the only lean I have is for a ridiculous return to fashion of a possibility of another draw. And I know that's a bit crazy, but both of them fight in that type of style where Paul Craig can get utterly destroyed for an entire round and get 10-8'd and then come back and win 2 rounds. And Shogun is almost in the same way now. It's like, obviously he's not as fast as he once was, he's not as devastating as once was, but he can still win rounds because he's willing to come forward and get that forward pressure. And last I checked, for it to be a draw is plus 5,000.
Yep.
So that's like throw $1 down, get $50 for a fight that did go to draw before. And that's not necessarily why I'm going there. It's just it's the style of fight and the way they match up. I know there was a similar one earlier. I had just missed one judge did have as a draw. But when like Neil Magny fought Hector Lombard, you got a guy that can really come forward, get a 10-8 first round, and then for sure is going to gas and then get outpointed the remainder of the 2. It's like anytime you see a matchup like that, that's worth throwing a little bit on, because 20 times you still end up ahead.
Man, if that fight ends in a draw, we are plastering that clip of you saying that all over the freaking internet.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, here's hoping that I might actually have a little bit on that, just because
yeah,
those matchups don't happen very often. So this is one of them.
How crazy would that be? 2 draws. Insane. So Ben and I, before we actually went live, we were talking about these 2 odds coming in. 2 underdogs on the main card that we both kind of like. The first one, Brandon Royval at plus 155 against Brandon Moreno. And we also kind of like Jordan Wright at plus 200 against, internet phenom Joaquin Buckley. What do you think about those 2?
Well, I mean, for anyone that's listening to this and also listen to our show, I am huge on Royval here. I think he has a major chance. Anytime you have an opportunistic finisher like that and someone who I really like Brendan Moreno, his style and everything. And typically, I always used to pick flyweights based off who was going to win the scramble or willing to engage in the scramble. And Moreno is all about that. I mean, his striking has come along quite a bit, but he's all for that. And Royval is such an opportunistic finisher, either catching him on the way in or just latching on a sub when he needs it, that I 100% agree on Royval there. And he was actually my pick on our show, just because this just seems like a great spot for him, and that people are overlooking him. Sorry, misspoke there. But anyone that has that type of finishing ability and is willing to go for broke and has the skills to back it up, I'm going to back you every time as a dog, just every time. And then in terms of the right fight with Buckley, it all depends how much went to Buckley's head with that viral clip of his finish. I mean, after all, some Kanye is debuting a song with your fight finish, because you get a little bit inflated there. So if he's going to be, he's always been flashy, but if he's just hunting for that highlight reel finish, he could find himself clipped. So this is usually when I try to look at if there's fighter interviews out from them and see how much stuff like that is going through their heads. And I haven't quite seen anything on him yet for that, but obviously the UFC has him planted here for a reason. They think he could do it again against Wright. That is definitely worth a chance, because I would by no means go on Buckley here. So if you like that one, by all means go for it. But obviously he's a huge dog as is, but this might be one of those situations where he's a big dog as is, and him inside the distance is probably even bigger dog for Wright. And you just put a little bit on that, and that one would pay huge dividends, because if Buckley is really, really hunting for it, that always ends badly.
Yeah, my thought process, and I will say, on listeners, listen to the MMA for Money show that Bob has. They do a detailed breakdown of like every single fight on the card. My only thought process on the Buckley Wright fight was that that Buckley line just looks so steep based on just, what we saw in his very last fight. Everybody, I assume there's going to be a ton of people that saw the clip, saw it on Twitter, saw it on Instagram, and they just want to lay some money on this guy again without really even giving any second thought to his opponent. And Jordan Wright, not, maybe not a future champion, but he is undefeated and he has some legitimate wins in his career. So that was really just my thought process on that line.
Well, I'm with you 100% on that one, especially because, I mean, combined fight time that we have on Buckley in the UFC is what, at like 45 seconds?
Yep.
So it's like it very well could be that he almost finishes right in the first round, and it almost looks spectacular. But I mean, there's certain things with these highlight reel finishes; they don't always lead to highlight reels. I mean, obviously everyone always shows the Showtime kick, but forget that the Showtime kick didn't actually knock out Benson Henderson. So if you're trying for something crazy, you're not always going to get the finish, and then you could have a tired Buckley in the second and third round getting outworked by Wright. It's very much a possibility.
And real quick, Wright inside the distance is plus 315 right now. So if people are interested in that, that's our value on that.
Those are good odds. So looking at the rest of this card, do you like, or tell us what other odds you like, props, any parlay ideas? Give us the rest of this card.
Well, I really like Calvillo here, although I'm a little bit worried because this is her biggest step up. But I think she's a fantastic parlay piece only because, I mean, I know knockouts are more the thing you want to take time off from and recover from. But I mean, Chukagian just absolutely got her insides destroyed by Andrade in the first round.
She sure
and
did.
that can also very much keep you from going forward and doing your game plan, because obviously her game plan is like sticking out the jab, adding up points. And I mean, I know she has, I believe, Mike Copenhaver on our show, Real Mike, let us know that she is a black belt under Renzo Gracie, I believe. But I mean, she could still be controlled and laid on. And obviously, she's only had like one sub in her entire career, and that was, I think, 6 years ago. So I really like Calvillo here as a parlay piece in the minus 200 range. There's a lot of steep stuff on this card. I tried to look for some other props other than that draw that I really liked. I mean, that Koski in round one, because he's going to come across like a tank, but for a round one, I believe it was minus 125 or plus 100. It's like that's not worth that specific of a prop. But in terms of parlay piece, I really like Calvillo. And then I'm trying to think of a solid secondary option to pin her with. I mean, I know a lot of people who are super high in Figueiredo that I've seen people pair those two together, which is a fairly safe play, especially if you really don't think that Perez is up to the task. I think probably a very good thing to do is, and it's probably extreme odds on that, but if you would do inside the distance on the Buckley versus Wright fight, because honestly, I think that one's going to finish regardless. I think last time I saw that was in the minus 2 or minus 300 range there, and do that with Cynthia Calvillo, you will end up either at even money or slightly plus. Or if you're really, really liking the inside the distance that I brought up about Shevchenko, the Shevchenko in the distance and Calvillo just straight would probably be around plus 130 to plus 140 in terms of odds there. And I think that's a fairly safe parlay to do.
I like Kyle Dawkins as a parlay piece too. He's coming in at minus 315, but he's looked really good so far.
No, in general, absolutely. I think he's looked so good. Honestly, I've been utterly surprised just by the Dawkins brothers in general, which the only thing I'm staying away is because I have a long-running theory about brothers and sisters within the UFC that there's always one that's the worst one. They're the light factor. Like, even look at Antonita Shevchenko.
Yeah.
She's definitely Shevchenko light. Dan Miller to Jim Miller. Dan Lozon, Joe Lozon's brother.
True.
Mark Hughes. It's like you pretty much find at least one sibling that doesn't quite come up to snuff. And I'm starting to lean that that's Kyle, just because I'm much higher on Chris, but I'm willing to be proven to be wrong. But one brother does have to prevail.
Yeah. We support weird theories like that on this show. We're all about it, definitely.
Absolutely. I think that's all we got, man.
Actually, I can't remember how to.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, sorry, cut out for a second. I was just saying it's like the light factor started earlier than that, but it's kind of just been called the Chevy light theory because it has made money on Antonina Shevchenko because that's what made us go heavy with Roxanne Modafferi when she went against her, just because she's just well-rounded enough. But then again, that's also the Roxanne Modafferi theory of anytime she faces a non-veteran that doesn't have a well-rounded game, she's likely going to get the decision because it worked on Andrea Lee as well.
Yeah, true.
Smart.
Yeah, I would stay away from Antonina this weekend. I have no Lipsky. I think that's all we got, man. I think we covered it all. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Please tell our listeners how they can follow you and how they can follow your show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me again. I am at MMA State of Mind on Twitter. Our show is the MMA4 Money Show that has Twitter account as well. We break down every single fight on the upcoming cards. We also have a guy there, Mike Gills, who does a fantastic job on DraftKings, if that is your sway. And we are live every single Tuesday at 8 o'clock Central. I always go with Central because I'm at Central time, and nobody ever likes to talk about the Central time. 9 Eastern and 6 Pacific.
Awesome, man. Well, again, thank you for joining us. We hope that we all win some money this weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.